My wife said she deserved better after 15 years together and left me for a man who promised excitement. I let her go quietly. Today, he's behind bars and she's facing the silence of her own children. I, 40M, married my wife, S, 38F, when we were both in our early 20s. We met in college, dated for about a year, then got married right after graduation. We were young, broke, and optimistic, the type of couple who thought love was enough to survive on ramen noodles and hand-me-down furniture. For a long time, it worked. We built our lives step by step. I worked as an electrician, she worked in healthcare admin. We had 2 kids by the time we were 30. Our marriage was never glamorous, but it was stable. Mortgage, school runs, family trips to the lake, movie nights with the kids. I cooked, she managed the schedules, we tag-teamed chores. Not perfect, but I thought we were in it together. The first signs of trouble were subtle. She started spending more time on her phone at night. At first, I thought it was work stress. Then came the complaints, disguised as jokes. You've gotten boring. We never do anything exciting anymore. All you think about is work and bills. I brushed it off as mid-30s restlessness. We'd been together so long that I figured everyone hit that stale phase. I suggested date nights, tried new restaurants, even signed us up for a weekend dance class. She came once, then dropped it, saying it was cringe. The phrase that cut me came one night after the kids were in bed. She looked at me and said, "I think I settled too young. I never had a chance to really live. Don't take it personally. I just deserve better than this suburban routine." I asked her what better meant. She couldn't answer directly. Just vague talk about freedom and not being tied down. I wanted to press, but something in her tone told me she'd already decided where she was headed. A month later, it became clear. She admitted she'd been seeing someone else. A guy from her gym, mid-30s, tattoos, worked odd jobs, the classic bad boy type. She framed it like she was finally being honest. She said she needed passion, excitement, and that she still wanted me in her life, just not in the same way. It was surreal. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, and she tossed it on the table like a college breakup. She even said, "You're a great dad and provider, but you don't make my heart race anymore." I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I told her calmly, "If that's how you feel, then I won't stand in your way. You have your freedom." The kids were 12 and 10 at the time, old enough to notice, old enough to ask hard questions. I told them the truth, carefully. Their mom and I weren't living together anymore, but I'd always be there for them. They took it harder than she expected. They didn't scream or cry. They just went quiet around her. She kept insisting, "You'll understand when you're older." But kids can smell betrayal even if they can't put it into words. Meanwhile, she dove headfirst into her new life. Social media posts of bar nights, weekend trips, selfies with her new boyfriend. The captions were things like, "Living my truth, finally free to be me. You can't cage a wild heart." I didn't comment, didn't react. I focused on work, on my kids, on documenting everything for custody purposes. Screenshots, dates, who had the kids when. 3 months after she left, I filed for divorce. Not out of spite, but clarity. She wanted freedom. She had it. I wanted stability for my kids. My lawyer told me my calmness and record-keeping would matter more than any dramatic confrontation. He was right. The kids began to prefer staying with me. At first it was subtle. "Can we do homework at Dad's?" Then it became, "Can we just stay with Dad this week?" She noticed and accused me of turning them against her. I didn't have to say a word. They were making their own judgments. The turning point came a year later when her bad boy was arrested. Assault charges from a bar fight, plus some older outstanding warrants. Suddenly the man she had staked her freedom on was gone, just like that. And with him went the illusion. She showed up at my place one afternoon, tears in her eyes, saying she had made a mistake. She tried to hug me. I didn't move. The kids wouldn't even look at her. My daughter walked past her into her room and slammed the door. My son said, "You chose him, remember?" and went back to his game. That's when she realized what she'd lost. Not me. She'd made peace with losing me. But the respect of her children and the life she thought she could just put on pause while she chased excitement. I gave her freedom. She got exactly what she asked for. And now, a year later, she sits in the wreckage of it, while I rebuild quietly with my kids at my side. After she left, my house felt both bigger and emptier. Bigger because there was suddenly more space, Fewer shoes by the door, fewer mugs in the sink, fewer arguments about nothing. Emptier because 15 years of shared history don't just vanish. I still caught myself setting the table for 4 instead of 3. Still reach for my phone to text her when the kids did something funny. But habit is not the same as love. And once I forced myself to see her actions for what they were, the grief gave way to clarity. The first 6 months were a blur of logistics. Divorce paperwork, custody schedules, bank accounts to separate, bills to reroute, mortgage payments to restructure. I was lucky. I had steady work, a reliable income. My lawyer drilled into me the importance of keeping receipts, documenting everything, and not reacting emotionally no matter how provocative her texts got. And they did get provocative. At first, she messaged me constantly. Some of it was practical. Can you switch weekends? But plenty was emotional. You're being so cold. We can still be friends, you know. The kids are distant. Did you say something to them? You don't have to punish me by acting like I don't exist. I never punished her. I just stopped playing the role she'd written for me, the stable husband waiting on the sidelines. She mistook silence for cruelty, but really it was just me enforcing boundaries. The kids saw more than I realized. My daughter, 12, told me one night at dinner, "Mom says you're bitter, but you don't look bitter. You look tired." That hit me harder than any insult. I explained that I wasn't mad at her mom. I was just focused on taking care of them and myself. She nodded, but I could tell she understood more than her age should allow. When custody negotiations began, I had my records ready. Screenshots of her social media trips while she claimed she couldn't take the kids. Messages where she admitted skipping weekends. Expense reports showing I was covering school supplies, medical bills, and groceries without her contributing. My lawyer was calm, methodical. "Let her paint the picture she wants," he said. "Your job is to show the paper trail." In court, she tried to frame me as rigid and unwilling to compromise. Her lawyer leaned on the controlling husband stereotype. But when my attorney presented her own posts, the selfies in bars, the weekend getaways with her boyfriend while she texted me to please keep the kids another night, the judge's expression didn't change, but I knew the weight had shifted. In the end, I got primary custody. She had visitation rights, but the kids were old enough to voice preferences, and they spoke clearly. They wanted to stay with me most of the time. I didn't celebrate. There's nothing victorious about watching your children choose one parent over the other. But I felt relief that their stability wouldn't depend on someone who had already proven herself unreliable. Meanwhile, her new life was unraveling in small ways long before the big collapse. The gym boyfriend she'd praised as passionate and authentic moved in with her within months. The honeymoon phase burned hot and fast. Suddenly, the Facebook posts about living free turned into vague quotes about loyalty and trust. A friend of hers quietly told me he'd been caught messaging other women, that money was tight, that he resented her kids being around. I didn't gloat. I stayed quiet. Because none of it mattered to my day-to-day. The kids noticed, though. My son, 10, came home one weekend and said, "Mom's boyfriend yells a lot. Not at us, just loud. I don't like it." That was enough for me. I documented it, brought it to my lawyer, and made sure visitation happened in neutral settings whenever possible. My ex accused me of overreacting. I kept my voice calm. If you want more time with the kids, create a safe, stable environment. That's all I'm asking. She called me cold again. Maybe I was. But I had no interest in fixing her choices. The day I signed the final divorce papers, I sat in my truck in the courthouse parking lot for a long time. No celebration, no tears, just stillness, like a weight had been set down. That night, I ordered pizza with the kids, and we watched a movie. Halfway through, my daughter leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thanks for not leaving us too." I had to step out of the room after, just to breathe. That's when I realized I wasn't rebuilding my life alone. I was rebuilding it with them. And then, months later, the inevitable happened. The bad boy she'd blown up our life for was arrested. Assault charges, old warrants, drugs in his car. It was like a cliche written too perfectly to be real. She tried to spin it to the kids. People make mistakes. He's not a bad person. He just needs help. But they weren't buying it. They'd already been distancing themselves for months. This was just the final crack. That was the first time she reached out to me in genuine panic. Not anger, not manipulation, just desperation. "Please, can we talk? I need to fix this. I need my family back." I didn't slam the door in her face. I let her talk, but I didn't offer what she wanted. The truth was simple. She'd already chosen. And choices have consequences, even when you regret them later. Update 1. When her boyfriend was arrested, it wasn't just a single blow. It was a slow-motion collapse. First came the phone call. She didn't even say hello. Just, they took him. The police came to the house. The kids saw it. I don't know what to do. I had to bite my tongue. Part of me wanted to say, you knew who he was. You brought him into their lives. But I didn't. I focused on the kids. I told her to drop them off with me for the week so they wouldn't be caught in the chaos. She agreed, voice shaking. And within an hour I had them at my kitchen table, silent, eyes wide. They didn't ask questions about him. They asked if they had to go back. I wrote everything down. The date, the time, what she'd said, what the kids told me. Not out of malice, but because documentation was my shield now. The following days, she called me nonstop. Sometimes crying, sometimes angry. He's not a bad guy. You don't understand him like I do. The kids shouldn't judge. Everyone makes mistakes. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me fail. I didn't answer most of those calls. When I did, I stayed neutral. The kids are safe. They're doing their homework. They're fine. Nothing more. Her friends, the same ones who had applauded her bravery when she declared she deserved better, were now scarce. Social media that had once been filled with empowerment quotes and gym selfies went quiet. Then, a week later, a long post appeared. Sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what matters. I made mistakes, but I am learning and healing. Don't judge unless you've walked in someone's shoes. I didn't comment. Neither did our kids. Silence is its own judgment. The legal process moved faster than I expected. His charges were serious: assault, resisting arrest, possession. Bail was set too high for her to cover. Overnight, the man she'd thrown away her family for was out of her daily life, replaced with court dates and lawyers she couldn't afford. That's when she turned her attention back to me in earnest. She showed up at my doorstep one Friday evening. Not made up or smiling like before, just worn down, eyes red, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Can we talk?" she asked. The kids were in their rooms. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She started with apologies, but they felt scattered, rehearsed. "I know I hurt you. I know I ruined what we had. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was lost. I let excitement cloud my judgment. I thought I needed more, but I threw away stability for chaos." I let her talk. Words tumbled out of her like water from a cracked pipe. Regret, excuses, half admissions. Then came the pivot. "But we can fix this. We can rebuild. For the kids. They need both of us. You can't just erase 15 years. That's when I finally spoke. "I'm not erasing them. But I can't undo what you chose. You wanted freedom. You have it. Now you're asking me to step back into a role after you burned it down." Her face twisted, not in anger, in disbelief. Like she'd expected me to open my arms after a dramatic speech. Like this was the part in the movie where the husband says, "Welcome home." Instead, I said, "The kids don't need us together. They need us stable. Can you be that? Because right now, they don't trust you." She cried then. Real tears, shaking shoulders. I felt a flicker of pity, but it wasn't enough to override reality. The truth is, I didn't hate her. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just didn't care the way I once did. Indifference is colder than rage, and I think she felt that more deeply than if I'd screamed. Over the next month, she tried in small ways. Dropping off lunches at the kids' school, asking to come watch their games, texting me about family dinners. But the kids resisted. My daughter told her outright, "We don't want fake family nights." My son barely spoke to her at all. It was brutal to watch, because as flawed as she was still their mother. I wanted them to have some kind of relationship, but I couldn't force it. Respect, once gone, isn't something you can demand back. I kept focusing on the tangible: stability, routines, normalcy. I helped my daughter with science projects, taught my son how to fix his bike chain, kept the house running. Meanwhile, her life shrank. No more boyfriend, no more glamorous nights out, no more cheering squad telling her she was brave. Just silence, debt, and the long shadow of consequences. The last message she sent me before I muted her notifications was, "I don't know how you can be so calm through all this. Doesn't it hurt you?" It did once. But by then, the hurt had calcified into something steadier: resolve. I didn't need to win. I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace. And for the first time in years, I had it. Final update that it's been 3 years since my wife walked out of our marriage with the words, "I settled too young and deserve better." 3 years since I sat in the courthouse parking lot with a stack of signed divorce papers, wondering if the life I'd spent 15 years building had just been erased. The funny thing is, it wasn't erased. It just shifted. Life now. The kids are 15 and 13. Teenagers with opinions, sharp edges, and humor that sometimes catches me off guard. They're doing well, better than I feared during those chaotic first months. We have a rhythm, school, practices, part-time jobs, weekends filled with the usual noise of adolescence. My house is full, not empty. I've grown used to being the anchor parent. It's not glamorous. Most days it's endless laundry, rushed dinners, late-night homework help, but it's steady. And that steadiness, I think, is what saved us. I still work the same job, though I took on more hours for a while to cover the gaps left after the divorce. I won't lie, there were nights I stared at the bills and wondered how we'd keep up. But routine has a way of dulling fear. You just keep moving. Her attempts. As for my ex, she's still around, but in fragments. She sees the kids occasionally, though not as often as she wants. They make their own choices now, and more often than not, they'd rather stay home. She still tries. She'll show up at games or text me about family holidays. But the kids keep her at arm's length. They're polite, but distant. My daughter once told me, "Mom's like that friend who lied to you once, and you never fully believe them again." It broke my heart to hear, but I didn't correct her. She was speaking her truth. I know my ex regrets what happened. She doesn't say it outright, but it's in the way she looks at me sometimes, like she's staring at a life she threw away. She'll make comments, half under her breath. "You always were steady," or "the kids really only open up to you." But regret doesn't rewind the clock. The bad boy, her boyfriend, the one she torched our marriage for, ended up serving time. Last I heard, he's out, but not in her life. She doesn't mention him, and I don't ask. The kids won't even say his name. To them, he's just a shadow of chaos they had to witness too young. What I learned. People ask me sometimes, friends, co-workers, if I hate her, if I still feel betrayed. The truth? I don't feel hate anymore. That's the surprising part. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And indifference is what crept in, slow and steady, until there was nothing left to burn. What I do feel is a sort of permanent caution, like a scar you don't notice until the weather changes and it aches. I don't give trust freely anymore, not even to myself. I second guess when someone tells me what I mean to them. I watch actions more than words. It's not bitterness, it's just reality. I've dated a little since the divorce. Nothing serious. A few dinners, some casual conversations. I find myself pulling back whenever it gets close to emotional intimacy. Not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because peace, the quiet I've built with my kids, feels more valuable than any romantic promise. Consequences. My ex once told me, during one of her attempts to reconcile, "You won, you know. You got the kids, the house, the respect. I lost." I told her there was no winner. Because what she didn't understand is that even when the dust settled, the cost was enormous. I lost 15 years of trust. I lost the version of my kids that believed their family was whole. I lost the man I thought I was, the one who believed stability guaranteed loyalty. The difference is, I chose to live with those losses instead of denying them. She still tries to rewrite hers into lessons or growth moments. Maybe that helps her sleep. I don't know. The kid's perspective. The hardest part has been watching my kids shape their own views of relationships. My daughter swears she'll never settle. My son says he'll never let someone control his happiness. They're too young to make vows like that, but I know where it comes from. I try to tell them people are complicated, that mistakes don't define someone forever, that their mother is still their mother. But I can see the skepticism in their eyes. Sometimes, the truth isn't a weapon. It's just heavy, and they'll carry it longer than they should. Final reflection. If you'd told me 3 years ago that I'd be here, single dad, calmer than I've ever been, watching my ex spiral in her own regrets, I wouldn't have believed it. Back then, I thought my life was ending. Now I realize it just changed shape. Do I miss her? No. I miss the illusion we had. The family dinners where the kids didn't scan the room for tension, the nights when I believed love was permanent. But I don't miss her. What I have now is better, though not easier. It's honesty. Raw, unflinching honesty. My kids know where they stand with me. I know where I stand with myself. She once said she deserved better. Maybe she did, but so did I. And in the silence that followed her leaving, I found it. Not in revenge, not in her downfall, not in winning custody. In peace.